Just hours before hundreds of thousands of pupils in England, Wales and Northern Ireland get their A-level and BTEC grades, the Education Secretary Gavin Williamson has apologised for the disruption to schooling in England. The move comes after last-minute changes to the appeals process for grades by ministers who are anxious to avoid the controversy that's unfolded in Scotland. Students in England and Northern Ireland have been told they can use mock exam results as a basis for any appeal. However, pupils in Wales have been told their AS results from last year will be used if they're higher than their grades tomorrow. The changes have prompted confusion, controversy and even dismay. Our education editor, Branwen Jeffreys, reports.
Is it good first?
Their generation has had its education turned upside down. In England, he's the man in charge, under pressure on student grades, defending changes made at the last moment.
What parents and children would expect is that I do absolutely everything I can, leave no stone unturned to make sure that we have a system that is always fair to the child.
You've known since March that exams were going to be cancelled. Just yesterday, you were saying that the system was good, and now you're changing it. You make no apology for changes at the last moment?
Well, what I said, and this goes back months, I apologise to every single child right across the country for the disruption that they've had to suffer.
He's dealing not just with cancelled exams, but the growing concern over children missing lessons.
So just to be clear, you have no regrets about how education in England has been handled during this pandemic?
Branwen, if we had the opportunity,
what would you do differently?
There are many things that we would take a different approach from, because we were in a situation that we were dealing with a completely unprecedented set of circumstances, and where we haven't got everything right. Of course, I'm incredibly sorry for that.
Are you worried that
these A-level students could now appeal using mock exams? They can resit in the autumn. So are they reassured?
As much as I can understand why the government have given that option, I don't feel very reassured by that, because you've got to bear in mind mocks aren't standardised tests. Everyone does different mocks throughout the country.
What can we do? We cannot replace the actual exams with something 100% the same. Putting everything all together, mocks, teacher's assessment, will be the closest option that we can actually have.
Using the mock as an appeal, it's not an exciting option to me, because I think if I had written the exam, I would have had that bit of extra mental preparedness, like I would have studied way harder. So having that option taken away and using the mock, I think it's not that much of a good idea.
Today, Labour said a generation was being let down.
This is a complete fiasco. It was obvious that this was going to be difficult, but it's been weeks or months in the coming. To have an 11th hour decision that's caused widespread chaos amongst teachers I've been speaking to, families and young people, it smacks of incompetence.
Schools will fill with students getting A-level and BTEC grades tomorrow. More details of the changes to appeals will come next week. The exams regulator has to find a way to make it work.
We want a robust, fair system whereby mock evidence can be brought to bear. We'll be doing that urgently over the next couple of days. In terms of a student getting their results, we very much hope that they'll do as in any other year, and they'll move on and be able to take those decisions tomorrow.
He's had to deal with one crisis after another. Education, a growing political headache for the government.
Do you feel as though you're fighting for your political survival, given the upheaval there's been in education?
Do you know what I'm doing, Branwen? I'm fighting for every single child. I'm not just fighting for my own children, I'm fighting for every child out there.
For students, just one more night of nerve-wracking waiting. Tomorrow, universities will be competing to offer them places. Branwen Jeffreys, BBC News.
Our political correspondent Chris Mason is in Westminster. This was always going to be difficult, but this late flurry of changes has caused confusion, even dismay.
Yes, you're right. It was always going to be something of a bodge job, this, because once the government decided to cancel exams, it had to work out a way of handing out medals without running a race. And however whizzy your system for doing that, there's bound to be perceived injustice. And yet here we are in the middle of results season on all of these last-minute changes. So the announcements that we heard in Scotland, where the system was pretty much junked. In Wales at 5 o'clock tonight, a significant change to the system. Then the changes that we've seen as far as mocks are concerned in England and Northern Ireland. And as far as England is concerned, universities didn't know the change was coming, and the exams regulator is now going to cobble together something of a system to try to make it work. Tonight, another interview from Gavin Williamson, the Education Secretary, in tomorrow's Daily Telegraph, saying the system in England is robust and fair, and insisting he will not do what happened in Scotland, relying just on the grades predicted by teachers. Let's be frank, this was never going to be easy. The reality is it's very messy.
Chris Mason, thank you.